The Unitarian contact with India dates back to the time of Raja Ram Mohan Roy, even before the establishment of the Brahmo Samaj. Raja Ram Mohan Roy, the pioneer of Indian Renaissance, was, among other things, a great scholar who studied Hindu, Islamic, and Christian theologies to form the basis of a liberal, universal religion based on the concept of monotheism. Through his several polemical debates, he argued and convinced the Christians in Calcutta, like Mr. William Adam, that the true spirit of Christianity lies not in the Trinitarian orthodoxy, but in Unitarianism. Thus, Mr. Adam renounced Trinitarianism and converted to Unitarianism. In September 1821, the Calcutta Unitarian Committee was originated by the direct patronage and financial support of Ram Mohan Roy, with Mr. Adam as the new Unitarian minister. Ram Mohan had regular connection with the Unitarians of England and America. In 1855, the American Unitarian Association established a Unitarian church in Calcutta under the leadership of Charles A. Dall, who was familiar with the next generation of Brahmo leaders like Keshav Chandra Sen, who also had direct contact with the Unitarians in England. Later, Pratap Chandra Mazumdar, another Brahmo leader, had visited the Unitarians in America and England several times in the last decade of the 19th century. The liberal, non-sectarian religious attitude inherent in both the Brahmo faith and American Unitarianism helped them to come close to each other. Though Rabindranath visited America for the first time in 1912-13, initially for rest and respite from the tremendous public attention he received in England with his English poems of Gitanjali, soon his presence was actively noted by the university crowd and the Unitarians. The poet's son, Rutindranath, was studying agriculture in the University of Urbana in Illinois. Rabindranath rented the house number 508 in West High Street to spend the winter with his son and daughter-in-law. The quiet and open plains of the university town of Urbana he liked. The months that followed were probably the happiest of all of his 5 visits to the US till 1930. He was approached by the local Unitarian minister, the Reverend Mr. Vale, to deliver a lecture at the Unity Club. Despite several requests, Tagore had not agreed to speak publicly in England because he was uncertain about the response of the audience to his lectures in English. He wrote to his friend William Rothenstein in England, "American people have an unhealthy appetite for sugar candy and for lectures on any subject and from anybody." Despite this reluctance, he probably agreed to speak publicly here for a number of reasons. In the first place, since the request came from the Unitarians, Tagore could not refuse. Secondly, he noticed that after the popularity and success of Vivekananda at the Parliament of Religions in Chicago, there was an abundance of fake godmen making money and deluding unsuspecting women with public lectures on Hinduism. Literally, there were too many unqualified anybodies speaking on any subject. We must not forget that Tagore had been the secretary of the Adi Brahmo Samaj in Calcutta since 1884. An indirect missionary consciousness has been gestating in Tagore's mind all these years. This was added to his more conscious urge since 1912 to address the Western audience with his ideas of building up a universalism with the spirituality of the East and the dynamism and materialism of the West. Not only did he begin translating and transmitting his Bengali literary works into English, he also began writing polemical discourses in English. All these probably prompted him to agree to deliver his first public lecture in English at the Unity Club on the Sunday afternoon of 10th November. In fact, his famous career as a public lecturer began here in Urbana, where he spoke on world realization, a lecture that was later included in his book of philosophical discourses, Sadhana, the Realization of Life, under a changed title, The Relation of the Individual to the Universe. The 51-year-old poet-philosopher struck an instant responsive chord among the American Unitarians and the university crowd, and requests for regular lectures were pouring in from University of Chicago, Harvard University, and from Rochester in New York. In the literary quarters, a number of Tagore's poems had been published by Harriet Monroe in her new magazine Poetry, with an excited and enthusiastic Ezra Pound urging Monroe to reserve space in next number for Tagore. He had sung Bengal intonation, and his English version of his poem is very wonderful. Harriet Monroe also introduced Tagore to Harriet Moody, who extended a gracious hospitality to the poet both in America and England. A very pleasant and comfortable friendship developed between them, with Moody's admiration for the poet bordering on reverence, while Tagore found a reflection of his fictional mother figure of Anandamoyi from his novel Gora in Mrs. Moody. Moody would refer to Tagore as the poet, prophet, our master. During this trip, Tagore's interaction with the Unitarians was quite frequent and intense. Though some of it is retraceable in the accounts, letters, memoirs, and articles by several people, much of the interactions may not have been recorded. From the recorded documents, we come to know that Tagore wanted to meet prominent Unitarians in America, as William Rothenstein writes in his book Men and Memories. One of the first persons whom Tagore wanted to know was Stafford Brooke, for Tagore, being a prominent member of the Brahmo Samaj, which was closely allied to Unitarianism, had heard much of him and Estlin Carpenter. Stafford Brooke, one of the senior-most literary critics, was overwhelmed reading Gitanjali. It was during his stay that he was acquainted with Charles William Wendte, the secretary of the National Federation of Religious Liberals, Channing and Theodore Parker, both of whom had a great influence on Brahmo movement. At Rochester Conference, he came in contact with the famous German philosopher, another Nobel Prize winner, Rudolf Christoph Eucken, who not only appreciated Gitanjali but also shared Tagore's views on mankind. Not only did Tagore exchange literary and philosophical views with well-known personalities from the Unitarian faith, he also struck an instant chord of intimacy with many a common people whose deepest admiration and reverence he commanded. A painting by William Penhallow Henderson is a testament of Tagore's friendship with the entire family, including Mrs. Alice Corbin Henderson and their 6-year-old daughter, Alice Oliver Henderson, whom he affectionately called Fairy Queen and Alice in the Wonderland. This long-lasting and deep-rooted friendship is expressed in the letters written by him to Mrs. Moody. Your friendship has become a part of our life, and I feel since now your sympathy will be a source of strength for me in all my works and aspirations. We actually need to initiate further studies to uncover any unknown aspect of Tagore's activities during his trip to America. The composition of the English songs is probably one such area that needs further exploration.
There are numerous strings in your lute.